This is replacing the intake boot, or the intake manifold, it's also called. This part here on a Husqvarna 592XP chainsaw. Tools I'm going to be using today, I have an electric 1/4-inch ratchet, T27 screwdriver, T27 bit, T20 bit, flat screwdriver, small pliers, hemostat clamp for the fuel line, and my impact with a 13mm socket on it. I'm going to take the bar and chain off first. And we'll pop the top cover off. Boots often tear right down in there, and I can see this one is torn toward the cylinder side of the saw. Next, we're going to take off the air filter. That one doesn't look too bad. And now we're going to be taking off the plastic cover over the carburetor there, using a T20. There's 4 screws, one here, and one right here, and then one behind this wire right there. So actually I'm going to take the wires out first. Just pinch these 2 little tabs. This wire, which is the diagnostic port, just pops out. This wire here, we'll disconnect that. This little plastic clip needs popped out right here. And then we're going to take this white connector out. Take note of how these wires are routed. Sometimes it can be kind of hard to remember. The diagnostic port goes over the top through this holder, and then the wires coming into the plug from the Autotune module come in the bottom. So we'll unplug this. All right. If yours has heated handles, you're going to have a few more wires to deal with. So 2 on the top are the same length, 2 on the bottom are quite a bit longer, so you'll have a hard time messing those up. Both of the ones in the bottom are the same length. Now there's 2 rubber retainers holding this on yet. One on this side by the stop switch. I'm just going to grab it with my hemostat, pull it back, and lift up on the manifold assembly there. And we got one on this side right here. Alright, so both of those are free. I'm going to disconnect my throttle cable. Just disconnect that end there, and then pull the cable itself down and out of the holder. And we should be good to start lifting this out. Okay, so the whole carburetor came off there, that's fine. This is my fuel line. I'm going to pinch that off so it doesn't keep bleeding fuel out. The carburetor just kind of pulls off of the manifold assembly. There is a post right there on top of the carburetor that slips up inside the intake manifold there. I guess this would be the air filter base, not the intake manifold. And this is our primer line coming off the carburetor. I'm just going to disconnect that. So now our carburetor is out. And I'm going to pull this fuel line off here. This would be the return line going back to the fuel tank from the primer. Pull that off just so it's not in our way. And we can set this whole thing aside. This is the auxiliary air intake for the carburetor. It would mount right like this. So we'll set that aside. So we're just about ready to pull this intake manifold assembly off. I'm going to pull the return primer line out of the holder here. Set that aside. There's a rubber retainer right here that needs to be removed. Just push it off like that. Okay, we're ready to pull this part off now. There are 4 screws holding it on. There are 2 up top here, 1 here, and 1 right there. You can see how badly that boot is ripped right there. So now this will come out. It's sometimes a little bit stuck. There's 2 little nubs on the back side that help hold it in, here and here. Sometimes those provide a little bit of resistance, but if you rock the top of it toward you, just work it. Sometimes you have to pry a little bit from the back side. Just be real careful that you don't break the fins on the cylinder wall, or on the cooling pins in the cylinder. Can pry a little bit here too. There we go. That is all it took. Oop, this popped back in. There we are. So here's our old part. See how badly that ripped right there. I see them rip here, and also right here they'll rip. Now is a good opportunity to check the intake side of your piston for scoring. This one looks pretty good. There's some wear there, but no heavy scoring. I like to clean this up as best I can. You really want to avoid getting any dirt inside there. I like to take just a little bit of oil and just wet down the rubber lip here, just to help it seal a little bit better. I don't use any sealant. Factory doesn't. I've never had a problem. So this is going to go back in like this. This is probably the hardest part of the whole repair, just getting everything worked back in there. You'll kind of feel it pop in once it gets in the proper place. There we go. I can tell it's seated all the way back in there. It's all the way down. I'm going to connect this right here so we're not fighting against that. I put just a dab of blue removable Loctite on all the screws. Now we're going to put our primer line back in here. Both of these little nubs here go on the inside of these 2 parts right here. So inside right there, and inside right there. I'm not sure if it really matters, but that's how they come from the factory. Now we're ready to put our carburetor back on. So the carburetor just sits on those 2 smooth studs right there. Pop the fuel line in first. Take my clamp out of there then. Alright, that slid smoothly on there. And I'm going to connect my throttle cable while I'm here. That. And now I can put the air filter base back on. This primer line that we disconnected gets connected right here to the primer. If you disconnected both lines from your primer, the long line goes to the long side of the primer. Kind of hard to see. This side is about a 1/4 inch longer than this side here. So short line to short side, long hose to long side. When you're putting your air filter base back on, this little spring right here needs to go underneath the throttle arm. But first, you have to put this post here up inside the air filter base. So you rock it forward, get that started up in there. Kind of got to work it back and forth. There. Now we'll come over to this side, seat this in. There we go. And then I like to put both of these rubber retainers back on so it's seated in there where it's supposed to be. I'm going to pop the throttle cable back inside its housing. It's working good. Put this rubber retainer back on. And don't forget to reconnect your small primer line. It's a little bit hard to get on the camera, but it's right down in there. Pop that back on. Okay, the only part we have left put in is this upper butterfly here. It's going to go in right like that. Just make sure that's working. Perfect. Okay, we can put our screws back in. A little bit of removable thread locker on there. You don't want those coming out. You can get dirt inside the engine if those come loose. Take your T20.
Tighten those up. Yeah, they'll have to be fairly tight. A small screw.
Okay. Now I want to test everything, make sure everything's working properly. Make sure our choke is working. Throttle's working freely. Shutoff switch returns to its on position. Make sure the primer works. The bulb is filling normally. It's pulling fuel through the carburetor. It means we've got our lines routed correctly. So now we'll reconnect our wiring. Just plug these back in. It goes in right like this. These wires go right inside this housing, or this clip right here. These upper wires go through there. This little plastic retainer gets popped right in there. And then this wire here is plugged in right there. You can't really mess this up. These two plugs are different sizes, so you can't get them confused. And this is the diagnostic port. That gets clipped in right there. So just double check your wiring, make sure nothing is getting pinched or strained or anything like that. Throw our air filter back on there. Our top cover. Now we can put our bar and chain back on.